the world of combat sports has always thrived on the kind of rivalries that send ripples through the mainstream, captivating audiences with the raw emotions, gritty performances, and unforgettable moments that only the arena of combat can provide. Some rivalries are born in the cage, others in the heat of public spectacle. But in the case of Nate Diaz, Conor McGregor, and the Paul brothers Jake and Logan, the animosity has been simmering for years, each confrontation, each word, and each slight adding more fuel to a fire that refuses to burn out. For those who've been following the sport closely, the narrative between Diaz and McGregor is one that has been etched into the very fabric of UFC history. Their initial bout at UFC 196 in 2016 shocked the world when Diaz, the underdog, submitted McGregor in the second round in what was one of the most iconic upsets in MMA history. That fight alone propelled Diaz into a new echelon of recognition and respect. The bad blood that brewed between the two following that fight was palpable, and when they faced off again at UFC 202 in a fight that would go on to be one of the greatest rematches in UFC history, McGregor got his revenge, winning a majority decision in a brutal 5-round battle. From that moment, the rivalry seemed endless, with fans always wondering if and when the two would meet again. But Diaz has never been one to play by the rules, and he has always done things on his own terms, which is exactly why the possibility of a trilogy fight has never materialized, at least, not yet. But the McGregor-Diaz rivalry is only one part of the tangled web that now includes the Paul brothers. Jake Paul, the YouTube star turned boxer, has made a name for himself by calling out UFC stars and former champions, mocking them, taunting them, and eventually fighting them in the boxing ring. His rise to prominence in the boxing world has been met with mixed reactions. Some see him as a legitimate fighter, others as a circus act capitalizing on his internet fame. Regardless of public opinion, Jake has turned his celebrity into a paycheck, and it's led him to call out some of the biggest names in the sport, including Diaz, with whom he's had a bitter rivalry for years. Jake and Diaz clashed in the boxing ring in 2023, where Diaz lost by unanimous decision, but that defeat did little to quench the animosity between the two. In fact, it only served to fan the flames, especially with Jake's ongoing taunts and the looming possibility of future confrontations. Logan Paul, Jake's older brother, has followed in his footsteps but with a slightly different approach. After his venture into professional boxing, Logan found another platform for his talents, WWE. As a high-profile figure in the wrestling world, Logan's status skyrocketed, and his crossover appeal reached new heights. However, despite his success in the squared circle, Logan has not let go of his boxing ambitions. He's been linked to a potential boxing match with none other than Conor McGregor, with rumors swirling that the two could meet later this year in a high-profile showdown. Whether that fight ever comes to fruition is uncertain, but the idea of McGregor, a former UFC champion, stepping into the ring with Logan Paul, a social media star turned wrestler, has the kind of spectacle value that could easily eclipse any recent UFC match. And so, it was amid this backdrop of tensions, rivalries, and constant media buzz that the unexpected meeting at the inauguration of U.S. President Donald Trump occurred. McGregor, Jake, and Logan Paul, three of the most divisive figures in the world of combat sports, found themselves together at the historic event, seemingly setting aside their past animosities in favor of an unusually cordial interaction. In the world of MMA and boxing, where trash talk and personal vendettas are the norm, this was almost too surreal to be believed. To many fans, it was an image that represented everything that was wrong with the current state of celebrity-fueled combat sports. After all, just days before, McGregor and Jake Paul were at each other's throats, making public threats and accusations. Yet, here they were, acting as if none of that ever happened. For Nate Diaz, ever the purveyor of no-nonsense, unapologetic commentary, this meeting was nothing short of a betrayal, at least in the eyes of the fans who had followed the drama and bloodshed between him and McGregor for years. Diaz had always been one to speak his mind, unfiltered and blunt, and his tweet calling out the trio was a reminder of why he had earned a reputation as one of the most entertaining and unpredictable figures in combat sports. Sit where you're told at the big inauguration day, you fucking dorks, Diaz tweeted, adding fuel to the fire with a video captioned 3 fucking nerds. His words cut through the noise of the viral footage of McGregor, Jake, and Logan, showing that, despite everything, Diaz was still watching and he wasn't impressed. The tweet, as expected, quickly gained traction, sending shockwaves through the combat sports world. Fans who had long supported Diaz's brash and unapologetic persona rallied behind his words, while critics of the Paul brothers and McGregor saw Diaz's message as a much-needed reality check. The truth was, despite the awkward camaraderie on display at the inauguration, the bad blood between Diaz, McGregor, and the Paul brothers had never truly dissipated. It was simply waiting for the right moment to surface, and Diaz, ever the provocateur, was more than happy to provide that moment. It wasn't just the reunion at the inauguration that sparked Diaz's ire, it was the ongoing spectacle that surrounded these men. McGregor, who had once been the face of the UFC, was now embroiled in constant speculation about his return to the octagon. After suffering several losses and injuries, McGregor had not stepped into the cage for over a year, leading fans to wonder if he would ever recapture the form that made him a global icon. The Paul brothers, meanwhile, had solidified their places in the boxing world, and Logan had become a massive star in WWE, further complicating any potential fight between him and McGregor. The whole situation seemed to Diaz like nothing more than a sideshow, and he wasn't about to let it go unchallenged. Diaz's tweet was just the latest jab in a long-running saga of rivalries that had defined his career. For Diaz, every encounter with McGregor, Jake, and Logan was more than just about business, it was personal. It was about respect, about honor, and about proving who truly belonged in the spotlight. While McGregor and the Paul brothers might have made peace for a fleeting moment, Diaz wasn't about to let them off the hook. As for a trilogy fight between him and McGregor, that was still very much on the table. But for Diaz, it wasn't just about the potential payday or the spectacle. It was about settling scores, about showing who truly belonged at the top of the combat sports world. And as for the Paul brothers, the animosity between them and Diaz was far from over. While Jake and Logan may have gained prominence in the boxing world, they still had yet to prove themselves against the likes of Diaz, who had fought and beaten the best of the best in MMA. If the Paul brothers wanted to prove they belonged in the same conversation as true combat sports legends, they would have to go through men like Diaz, who were unafraid to call them out when the time was right. For now, the world waits to see what happens next in this ever-evolving drama. Will Diaz continue to call out McGregor and the Paul brothers at every turn, or will one of them finally step into the ring or octagon to settle the score once and for all? The tension is palpable, and with each passing day, it seems more and more inevitable that this rivalry will come to a head sooner rather than later. And as always, Nate Diaz will be there to make sure the world knows exactly how he feels about it.